Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and the natural homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Ian Mann, and I will be the chair of the panel today, joined with Ken Seelan and Ron Merritt, who's having some technical problems right now. The assessment department personnel will be Jonathan Spacek, and administrative personnel present today will be Zachary Mohan and Stephen Lund. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Boardroom Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing is concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rules in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of the market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to the assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. All of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all of the applications have been heard. The board will then deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 and 3 through 8 on our docket today. I'm going to suggest that we take a short recess now to attempt to resolve the technical issues. When we return, we will proceed with the swearing in of the evidence or the applicants. Thank you for your patience. I think we're ready to start this morning, but one of the items in the introduction just requires a bit of modification. I had introduced the panel earlier as myself, Mr. Seelan, and Mr. Merritt. Mr. Merritt will be unable to join us today, and in his place, we have Mr. Richard Whitbread, who will be appearing on the panel for today's matters. Now, as I indicated earlier, the matters we will be hearing are numbers 1 and then numbers 3 through 8. So I think Mr. Tack can go into the waiting room, and no one has as yet been sworn in. So if you can please swear in after that, if you can please swear in both the assessor and the first applicant. First, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jonathan Spacek.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant?
Yep. Hello.
Hello. Please state your full name.
DJ Trudeau.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll turn to number 1 on the docket today, Mr. Spacek. That is the street address at 278 Marion. Can you please introduce the property and lead us through your evidence?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are looking at 278 Marion Street. This is the 2025 assessment at $625,000. This is roll number 0607505700. And just at the onset of this one, I would like to point out that all of these briefs today, they were actually put together by another assessor. I am just subbing in as they were unfortunately unable to make it today. So I'm going to be reading through these to the best of my ability, answer any questions the best I can. I'm not necessarily in the mind of the assessor when they're making these. So if we could just wanted to note that out, that I will obviously answer to the best of my ability. But this is a pretty unique situation that doesn't happen very often. We are at 278 Marion Street. So what we have here is a one-story, what we consider in the classification of a converted, it's a converted residential to office. So an OFR is the short name for it. The house originally was built in 1945. We have a gross floor area of 5,456 square feet. We have a leasable area for the whole building of 2,632, which includes 1,680 in basement space. You'll see if we turn to page 2, you can see a front view of the property. At the time of this picture, it was Monica's hair studio. There's a note that the 2020 subject lease is at approximately $1,694 per square feet. If you turn to page 3, you'll see a very broad aerial view of location of the property. Again, I can confirm it's on the south side of Marion Street. It's between Bremer and Traverse Avenue. If we turn to page 4, we have some more aerial photos of this property. You can see the layout. And then on page 5 is how this property is actually valued. Again, when we have these converted office res conversions, we use the income approach. So what we have here is 3 premises in the property for a total of 2,632 square feet at a blended rate of $14.45 a square foot. So the first premise is 1,460 square feet at $16.70. We have a basement leasable area of 832 square feet at $9.83, and a standard, again, third premise, standard finish, 340 square feet at $16.11. This whole income approach is model driven. You'll see that for this conversion for the 2025 cycle, we have vacancy loss at 6% for these properties, 3% expenses for 2025, $8 in shortfall, and an overall capitalization rate of $5.35. The assessor had put together some rent comparables, so you can see a range of properties on St. Mary's. We have a range in size from the smallest at 2,438 square feet at 20 St. Mary's and up to 10,931 square feet at 188 Marion, which is the third comparable. This is a blended, we have a range here in rental rates on St. Mary's from $14.70 up all the way to $22.09 a square foot. So this is a mean for these comparables of $17.20 and a median of $15.85. Again, having the assessors included on page 7 the capitalization rate chart. Again, there is no direct, we do not have any direct range for the OFR property classes. There are so few of them. But for comparison, if you look at this capitalization rate chart, you'll see the first rows under the property type or office, which we'll be looking at today, and you can see the fourth and the fifth row is suburban A and B OFS. So these are standard 1 to kind of 4-story office buildings. The city of Winnipeg, this cycle has used 20th to 80th percentile of cap rates of 5.25% to 6.75%. Anything outside of those is outside of that 20th and 80th percentile. And you'll see Colliers for suburban Bs has used 6 to 7% for quarter 1 2023. CBRE has used 6 to 7% for suburban A and 7 to 8% for suburban B. Cushman and Wakefield has used 6.25% to 7% for suburban A and 6.75 to 7.75% for suburban B. And then page 9 onward. So page 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 are all, and 15 is the income and expense mailer that was sent in. You can see The owner has complied with request for information. Again, filled out the income and expense on page 14. There is some rental income and expenses. Has 1,700 square feet as the leasable area and 5% as a vacant space. If we turn to page 15, there is at the time of the reference date turning or of 2022, there was a month. The 2022 mailer was the one we were looking at. There was a month-to-month lease, 1,700 square feet for turning leaf, and they were paying $2,400 a month. And then page 16 onward is just the assessor has put together some pictures of all the comparables. So if you wanted to compare the pictures to the comparables that were used, you can look at that. And I believe that is everything the assessor put on here. So that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trudeau, have you any questions of Mr. Spacek?
I do, yes. So I'm going to go back up to page 2 where it shows the subject property. And this, I mean, this isn't the actual property. The property is the one beside it with the canopy. The property that we're looking at right here where it says Monica's Hair Studio is 282 Marion Street.
Perfect. The one on the right?
Yeah, so the one on the
Yeah.
right is 278.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring clarity to that. Furthermore, I wanted to know why, and I mean, I'm not sure if you'll have the answer to this, but the assessor didn't include any realistic expenses. They put 3% in here, where, I mean, when you clearly look at the financial statements that have been sent in, there's a lot more expenses to that, you know, when you normalize the statements, looking at insurance, office, professional property taxes, repairs and maintenance. So I'm curious as to why they didn't include any actual real expenses in their income value summary.
Honestly, great question. And the way the whole assessment of these type of properties works is we have an overall expense rate, and it's a small non-recoverable expense rate that you know, it's ranged from 2 to 5% over the years. We're currently at 3%, and it's I again, I don't know the best way to explain it, but we don't actually take the expenses from each property and adjust what we're looking at for the non-recoverable expenses. And then what we do is for other expenses, we use things such as vacancy shortfall. So shortfall covers the cost to cover the vacant space in a property on average. And because we're looking at the market value, not the per property value of what's sent in, it's that's why we have like a 3% expense across the whole property, whereas they on year after year it might be different. But again, 3% is to represent the non-recoverable expenses occurred, you know, on average by an owner of a property over the year, if that makes sense. So we try to cover it in other ways, but yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I think that was, yeah, I mean, the comparables are tough because it's all these other properties are beautiful retail spots and this one not even close. But
yeah, and I know that wasn't a question, but though I know what you're getting at. I know what you mean. And the problem, and I've shared this with in the past for these types of properties, they're these, and just for the panel to know, these smaller buildings like that have been converted on many of the main thoroughfares are often owner occupied, so we have no rents for them, or very, very few. So that's why I use the next best thing in our mind is these offices, which again are, I will agree, nicer, built for office space. And these are often bought not necessarily for their income value. We have to represent it that way, but they are often bought by smaller businesses, you know, generally just a few like accountants, massage therapists, hairstylists, you know, there's a wide range of these, and then they're purchased, and then it's, you know, this is the best way we can put together to what we think is a fair value for the property. So, and I will agree that it's just tough to come to exact comparables for this type of property.
That is all the questions I had on the brief.
Thank you. Mr. Seeland, have you any questions?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Can you explain how you came up with the 5.35 cap rate for this property?
Yeah, I definitely didn't come up with it, but I know what you mean. Our model for every cycle comes up with cap rates for the property based on reviewed sales. So for this one, it would take OFS sales, OFR sales, similar type property sales, and it'll give it a range of cap rates based on pretty much generally the age, size, and location of the property. So again, for 2,632 square feet on Marion, for a property built in 1945 with a 1975 effective year, it's popping out a 5.35% cap rate. And again, on the lower end, and just relating to what I said before, is these smaller properties tend to sell. They're not multi-tenant. They're bought by a smaller, usually a business owner. They're usually not bought as investment properties. And again, because they're smaller, there is less risk involved in them, just naturally.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions?
No, I have nothing, thanks.
I have a question, and you may not be able to answer this. I'm sorry, Mr. Spacek, for putting you in the position, but the rent areas are, I guess, separated into three discrete areas. There's the 1,460 square foot area, the 340 square foot area, and then there's the basement area as well. The comps that have been provided, or the comparable rents that have been provided, first of all, at page 5, are any of those basement rents, or can you tell?
No, so like I will say, just from my history of using these type of comparables, there might be basement space included in those. Often for office buildings, at least from what I've seen as a trend, is the main floor, the main area is all leasable, and then something like basement would be thrown into the lease. I'm finding less and less separate basement leases. So yeah, I would say for these rents, you could count them all as main floor as above.
Okay, so that leaves the question, or there's no evidence that this basement suite has been separately rented out, then other than what the rent rolls or what the financial statements have indicated?
Yeah, I would say I see 1,700 square feet being leased by Turning Leaf, and I'm going to assume that's main floor lease, not including the basement. And I'm going to assume, or my best guess would be, that the basement's included. Maybe they use it for storage, maybe they don't use it at all, but it's definitely most likely not being leased out separately.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Trudeau, can we have your evidence, please?
Absolutely. So I'm going to review the letter that I sent in. I'll just go over it here, just addressing what we've put forward. So we've included in our evidence the income and expense statements. So this has come directly from the financial statements for 2023. And then we've also included the 2024 Collier's cap rate report, which I do realize we're looking at 2023 values, but we do have that on the assessor's brief here. So this property is a single use. There's one tenant in there, and their rental revenue gross is $32,943. So the landlord pays for all the expenses here. So that includes, we've gone through the financials and we have normalized the statement for what we would actually calculate net income on. So we have our insurance, office, professional fees, property taxes, repairs, and maintenance. So I didn't further include, what vacancy would be because it is fully leased, or a management fee because the landlord just self-manages it. So that gives us expenses of about 19,520 off that 32,943 for a net income of $13,423. Now, being in real estate, you would. This property is a Class B suburban office space. So, you're not going to get a 5.25% cap rate on this. You're going to be at 8% all day long. And as we all know, the office market is completely tanked. So we've used that 8% capitalization rate to give an actual building value of about $179,000. And again, we're strictly, as the assessor has done as well, looking at what this property would generate, what the revenue would be, and we have to take that actual net income for what the property is valued at. So mine's short, easy, and brief.
Thank you, Mr. Spacek. Questions?
Just quickly, so I see you're looking at you're using the financials for this property coming to a value. Did you do any sort of comparison, like for $178,000 property on Marion? We're looking for the market value. What would this sell for on the reference date? Did you compare to any other buildings nearby for sales of a similar type to see if this 179,000 is a reasonable sale price for this property?
I did, but this property has a lease in there going until, I believe it's about 2026. So any person that's going to come in there is going to look at the net income, not as an owner occupier.
Okay, so you do think 179 is a solid sale price for this property as of April 1st, 2023?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Seeland, have you any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
No questions, thank you.
I have a question with respect to the financial statement that you prepared on your page 1, I guess. You got the pro forma with the insurance, office, professional fees, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been comparing that with the one that was prepared by Laser Grant that appears at page 12 of the assessment department's branch, and the numbers are at odds.
They are. So the ones that you guys are looking at there from the city of Winnipeg assessor are 2022. The ones I've provided are 2023 numbers.
Okay, so those would be numbers reflecting 9 months of post-reference information?
That would be, yes. So actually, but if you work them out, we come down to the difference between the 2022 value, like income statement, and the 2023 is about, what do we have?
About $2,000.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Of gross revenue, but net revenue would be about $40.
No, actually, the net income that you have, I see, is 13,423, and the net income as factored by Laser Grant from the is 15,660 or 20.
Oh, yeah, okay, about yeah.
Okay.
I didn't include telephone in there, so yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything. Oh, yes, cap rates. You're using the Colliers. Sorry, just going back to my notes here with respect to that. You're using the chart as prepared by Colliers with respect to the cap rates.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're between 7.5 and 8.5.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
No summary, thank you.
Mr. Trudeau?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, then that will conclude that matter. Thank you, and Mr. Trudeau, you will be notified by registered letter about our decision.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. And you can please call in Mr. Rack, and we will turn to number 3 over the docket. Mr. Rack, sorry. Yes, he has to be sworn in.
Mr. Rack, you can hear and see us okay?
Yes.
Perfect, I'll just affirm you right now. So, Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Loyal Rock.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rack. We're just going to turn up the volume on the on your microphone here so that we can hear you just a little bit better. Mr. Spacek, this is the street address 20 St. Mary's Road we're dealing with. If you can introduce the property and give us your evidence, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are looking at file number 24-338. This is 20 St. Mary's Road, roll number 060911000300. We have a 2025 assessed value of 1,250,000. Location wise, this is a property as you're driving south over the Norwood Bridge. It's at the foot of the bridge on the west side. You'll see a 2-story office building. It was built in 1987 with an effective year of 1999. We have a gross floor area across 2 floors of 4,726 square feet and a leasable area of 4,684. So if we turn to page 2, the assessor had put together a brief showing, again, sale price 2012, so an older sale for 900,000. She's included a portion of the rent roll, or the rent roll, and you can see for 2022 there was a subject lease for the second floor. It looks like, floor 2, unit 1, Fair Square Group Realty at $15 a square foot. We have looks like as of since September 2019, the first floor has been vacant. I'm not sure. Yeah, I can't confirm, but that is what the rent roll is. So we have a total of 4,876 square feet as of the reference date, with 2,438 vacant. And then it looks like building occupancy permit has been included on the bottom of page 2 for 20 St. Mary's Unit 2, which would be the one that was vacant. And then it looks like there was an occupy for Purple Bricks. And that was on August 16th, 2021. Page 3, again, just a front view of the property with also a large map aerial view. Page 4, some more aerial views of the property. You can see triangular shaped lot with some parking on the property. Page 5 is just showing this is zoned as commercial. And page 6 is where the value of the property is. So for 2025, we have 2 floors at the second floor at 2,246 square feet at $14.91, and the main floor at 2,438 square feet at $17.65. This works out to a blended rate of $16.33 a square foot net rent. And we're now under our OFS. So this is all of our offices that are 4 stories and under. So we have for 2025 a 6% vacancy loss, model expenses of 3%, shortfall at $8, and an overall capitalization rate at 5.4%. So this is how you get that total of 1,250,000. You can see the assessor has included 5 comparables. We have 4 located on St. Mary's, ranging from 187 St. Mary's to 1615 St. Mary's. And we've also included the second comparable, 188 Marion. So these are all OFSs, 1 to 2 story. The oldest being the first one at 187 St. Mary's. Locationally wise would be the closest, built in 1957, and it has a square foot of 3,551 at $19.71. And then we have another range of comparables. They total range of rents is from $15.50 up to $22, and we have some smaller square footages, the smallest one being comparable 5 at 716 square feet, with the second one being the largest, which is another 1-story OFS at 188 Marion, and it's 10,931 square feet, so a little larger. But overall, we have a mean rent of $17.86 for the comparables and a median of $16. And just a reminder, our property is at $16.33 a square foot with a 1-unit lease in place of $15 a square foot. Again, if we've included the actuals, I've already went over the rent roll. You can see, I'm just scrolling down. All the rental comparable pictures are starting at page 14 if you wanted to compare the comparables that were used. And we have the application. So that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rack. Have you any questions?
Yeah, so you didn't prepare this documentation, you're just presenting it today, correct?
Correct, Mr. Rack.
And as far as the cap rates go, all the parameters are computer generated?
They're all model generated, yeah.
Okay. So the assessor who presented this, I see no sales comparables with cap rates in this brief, correct?
Not included in the brief, no.
Okay, those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
I have none, thanks.
The only question I have, Mr. Spacek, with respect to the cap rate is the, I guess, classification, where this would fall in the classification. Would this be suburban A or suburban B office, or is it something that you're comfortable indicating where that split might be?
It's a good question. I think everywhere is maybe slightly different in their definition of the A versus B. I think from what I understand, I'm just going to my cap rate chart, sorry. The suburban A is about the, like, if it's being looked at by some of the companies for comparison, it's usually larger square footage, very, very high quality. I'm going to say I would classify this as a suburban B, but it's a little smaller, built in 1987, a little older. If we're going to classify, I would put it as a B compared to a very nice brand new built OFS with a lot of square footage.
Thank you. That's my only question. Mr. Rack, your evidence, please.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. If you look at my brief, I was in error. There is parking on site. So basically, my argument is that the cap rate is too low, and the assessor didn't provide any sales to prove that the cap rate should be 5.4%. So if you look on page B or page 2, I did calculate the actual potential rent at 74,875. The assessor's cap potential income at 76,517 is fine. I will apply the potential income and the vacancy shortfall and expenses, and I'm going to adjust the cap rate. So the assessor stated cap rates for the department are calculated by the computer, or determined by the computer. When you're looking at companies like CBRE and Cushman & Wakefield, people actually calculate those cap rates. So they actually look at properties to come up with those cap rates, unlike the computer. And you'll see that CBRE has got I've classified this as an A building, I think, because of the condition. It's pretty nice. Basically, so the cap rates run from 6 to 7%. Cushman & Wakefield is determined that they run from 6.25 to 7%. So basically, the average of an A high to low is basically 6.5%. It's actually 6.57%. So I'm going to apply a cap rate at 6.5%. I'm adjusting the area from 4684 to 4875 from the income expense mailer. So using the city's parameters and adjusting the cap rate to 6.5% as the industry cap rates have shown, I'm looking for a value of basically $1,037,000. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman. And below that, you'll see my calculations that determine what the net rent is. So I'm fine with the apartment's net rent. It's just the cap rate adjustment to, as far as the industry cap rate studies show, it should be higher. So I'm looking at 6.5% for a cap rate. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Spacek, any questions?
Just one about the cap rates. When you're saying the department's computer make them, how do you think they're determined? Do you are you saying CBRE only review sales and we don't look at any sales? I don't understand.
Well, I know that the cap rates that are generated by the department are actual real cap rates. They take sale prices and then apply computer-generated rents to those cap rates. And basically then they use a time adjustment to them. So we don't know exactly how they're calculated, but we know they're not actual cap rates because they take sale prices and they apply computer-generated rents to them. And you'll see that the department's using 5.4%, where industry cap rates show that that's too low. I mean, the lowest that CBRE has is that's 6%. So the 5.2 to me is 5.4 is too low, according to industry standards.
Okay, thanks, Lyle. Just so we're clear, every sale that happens in the city of Winnipeg is reviewed by us, and the cap rates we determine to build our model for cap rates are all based on real NOIs. We don't even consider cap rates for our generation that don't have actual income and expenses with them. Just so it's clear, they're not. It's the whole baseline for our 2025 cap rates for OFSs are all based on OFS sales before and up to the reference date, where there's actual net leases in places and operating expenses. Then yes, then there is regression done to create a range of cap rates based on age, size, and location. But all just so there's an understanding and we're on the same page, it's they are based on real sales that have happened that we've analyzed and well. Thank you.
Well, did you take a look at your page 8?
Well, I think we're getting outside the realm of the question and answer here, Mr. Rack. You had an opportunity to give your evidence, and we've heard the evidence and the questions that you have you've answered. I think going back and forth, engaging in a dialogue is not going to be especially helpful at this point.
Mr. Chairman, the assessor, as I understand it, has stated that they use actually net operating income.
Yes, and
to
that's
determine to do.
Yes.
So basically, that's contradictory to the evidence he's presented. On page 8, it says capitalization rates, and it says in the second paragraph, 2025 general assessment capitalization rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income, and sale prices were time adjusted. So they don't use the actual net operating income. They use model-generated estimates of net operating income.
Thanks. I think we've. I think the panel has your point with respect to that. Mr. Seelan, have you any questions?
No, my questions have been answered, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread.
Yes. I'm looking at your contention that the property is 2,000 roughly square feet larger than what is stated in the evidence put forward by the assessor. Can you tell us where that 2,000 square feet comes from, sir?
As I stated, that comes from the income and expense mailer.
So you're using the owner's information from the mailers. I may have to
That's correct.
I may have to go back to the assessor, Mr. Spasek. How do you comment on that?
The difference in
2,000 square feet in property space.
I didn't see that much. I see we're at 4,684. What is Lyle using? 4,875. Yeah, so 200 approximately.
I'm
again,
sorry, 200, yes.
Yeah, it's I mean, I didn't compare. We have 2,438 plus 2,438, total 4,876 being reported as of 2022. 4,876. We're using 4,684. So yeah, we are, as of now, under by a couple hundred.
Okay.
Hopefully updated in the future.
That'll change your number. Okay, well, that was all I had. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, I just have a question with respect to the cap rate. You assigned a cap rate of 6.5%. Is that based solely on the ranges provided by the CBRE, Cushman & Wakefield and Collier's chart that you have provided? Or did you do any other independent analysis?
No, it's just from CBRE, Cushman & Wakefield, because Collier's doesn't have a cap rate for an A building. So that's the average between high and low of an A building.
No, just halfway between the 6 and 7%. Is that fair?
Yeah. Actually, the actual number is 6.57%, but I use 6.5%. So that's the average, rough average.
Thank you. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
No summary. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rack, any summary?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Then that will conclude this matter, and we will turn to the next matter on the lease, that being 138 Portage Avenue East. Mr. Stachek, can you introduce the property and lead us through your evidence, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are at file number 24-607. We have roll number 120938345500. This property is located at 138 Portage Avenue East. We have a 2025 value using the income approach of $3,091,000. This is an interesting property. You will see on page, or at least when I don't know if it'll be easy to see on the page, but again, from my understanding, this building is completely vacant. There's been a permit in place to create a large multifamily property here. So as of the reference date, that from my understanding, this property was 100% vacant, but we also have had some sales. So the most recent sale you can see on page 2. Actually, sorry, I'm just going to take one step back. I'm just going to describe the building quickly for everyone. If you turn to page 3, you can see the building in place. It's a large OFD office tower. We have a gross floor area of 63,468 square feet. We have a leasable area in this property of 45,772. This property was actually built in 1909. Again, the most recent sale on this property was in 2021. It looks like there was a consideration and sworn value from a vendor to a purchaser, and then on the same day, consideration and sworn value of $1,950,000. And then 5 years ago, it was 5 years ago before that, in 2016, it was purchased for $2,550,000. So that's the sales history of the property. You can see on page if we turn to page 3 and 4, you'll see some more pictures. You'll see there's a parking lot included with this property. The assessor has put some rent comparables together for a mix on page 5. So starting at the top of page 5, we have 4 OFSs, older ages, downtown. We have 167 Lombard and 177 Lombard, which is comparables 5 through 9, which are OFDs. Similar to the subject property. Again, those are built in 1906, 1909. And then our final comparable being used is 136 Market Ave. There's 3 units in there. The property was built in 1905. This is considered an OFC. And you can see the range of rents from approximately $10 up to $18.48 for this type of property. And we have a mean of $12.89. Also included are 5 at the bottom of page 5 is some comparable parking lots. So the range of NOIs per stall for 2022 was $50 up to $248. So you can see there's a wide range for parking lots downtown. If we turn to page 6, the parking lot value given by our department is 24 stalls at $92 a stall with a 4.5% cap. This comes out to $489,000 for the parking lot, combined with the next page, $2,501,000, brings us to our total value of $3,091,000. But if we can just turn to page 7, this is the OFD income stream. So for 45,771 square feet, we have $8.80 blended rate. You can see the wide range of rents across the building, wide range of unit sizes, but it works to $8.80 a square foot. We are also giving this property the highest vacancy loss that we give as a department. So we're at the 25% vacancy to rent that this building is in the middle of, in the timeline of it emptying out to be developed as a new property. And then we have 3% expenses with an 8.05% cap rate. So again, the OFD cap rates are higher to represent kind of the, large size, older building, multi-tenant, kind of some of the risk factors involved in these properties. So you get the cap rate of 8.05%, and that gives the building value of $2,501,000 using the income approach. Again, if we scroll to page 12, so when a property is, again, I am kind of trying to get into the mind of the assessor here, but just briefly, page 12 included is the cost approach as well. So you can see that the total value of this building using the cost approach is $4,024,000. This is a combination of the depreciated value of the building of $2,376,000 combined with the land value of $1,648,000. And this has just been included to show kind of the value of the building as empty and just what's there right now. You can see on page 13, the land sales comparables have been included. So the assessor put together some downtown land sale. Our subject is on the bottom right-hand side. You can see subject 138 Portage Avenue East. We have 15,000 square feet approximately at $137.49. And then, oh wait, sorry, I just have to see. I just want to confirm where our land value is. I believe that's the mean. I'm trying to just give me one moment here. I want to confirm what the actual land value of this property is. So our land value is located on page 15. The net rate for 15,164 square feet is $108.68, given for towards the cost approach land value. And then the land comparables that have put together on page 13 and 14. We have 6 land sales ranging from 2017 to 21, all located downtown. And the mean of these sales is $137.49. All comparables pictures are located at the end of the brief if anybody wants to compare. And you can see on page 18 going forward, the income and expense questionnaire sent for 2022 is a vacant boarded building. Again, no income to report. And then we also, at the bottom of page 19, the owner has put, please see attached letter stating that building is currently vacant boarded and a development permit has been submitted. So page 20 is just showing January 9th, 2023, variance conditional use to residential multifamily. And then as of 2024, East Block Lofts, the permit for constructing a 7-story, 106,460 square foot new building, multifamily dwelling complex, tied in with existing heritage structure with 117 units. So that permit has been included on page 21. Some parking rates have been included on 22. And then, so if anybody wants to see some rental comparables, 24 going forward are all the different office buildings being used as comparable for rent. And then starting on page 30, all of the land comparable pictures, you can see that were being used by the assessor. So thank you for your patience on that one. That is my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, any questions?
Yeah, a couple. So comparing land sales, the subject property has a building on it. So you would, in order to determine what the land was worth, you'd have to include, would you agree you'd have to include the demolition costs of the building?
Yeah, that could be concluded for land value. That could be included, absolutely.
I know you didn't put this together, but on, I guess, page 5, those rent comparables, I mean, all those rent comparables are for occupied space. I mean, you don't know the building, but would you agree if it was a burned out building, you wouldn't achieve those rents?
Yeah, burned out. Like, I mean, it depends on the condition of the space. You know, you can get lower rent for a lower quality space. Obviously, this building, the owner determined they would like to redevelopment, so they've made the decision to shut it down for a time until they can build some multifamily with it.
Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Bear with me, please. Just looking at the numbers.
Certainly.
Go ahead if you want to ask.
Okay, Mr. Seelan, do you want to jump in then?
At this point, I have no questions. All my questions have been answered, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
We'll come back to you then, Mr. Whitbread. I have some questions with respect to the calculations done at page 15, and hopefully you can answer them. I know again that you put the brief together, but the land valuation based on the net square footage of 15,164, would that include the parking valuate, or would that include the parking area as well?
This land area of this whole lot is 15,164. So that includes the plan area of the building of approximately 7,876 square feet, plus the other lot at about the same size to come to that total of 15,000. So it would include, the land would include the parking lot and the area under the building.
Okay, but the parking lot is still used. Is that correct?
You know what, I can't confirm. I know that there was included some rates as of, you know, I don't know if it shows the date on here, but there was parking stalls, $12 daily, $3, you know, prior to the reference date. I haven't been by there and confirmed if it's operating, but I'm going to assume as of the reference. Yeah, I can't answer for certain. I don't want to
Okay,
say.
sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Whitbread?
I'm just, what I was struggling with is your page 2, the subject sales history, just so I understand this. It looks like on July 21st, 2016, Zaba Inc. purchased the building for $2,555,000, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
Then there was a transaction from Zaba to Carpathia for $1 5
Mhm.
years later.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened during that period? And I know we're putting you on the spot, but
No, I just, though, I went as far as looking up the title and business owner to confirm that the current owner is the current owner. They purchased it. I don't know what happened with the bank or the mortgage. I don't know what the deal is with buying this property with the new owner, so I can't confirm. But all I know is the most current purchaser owns it, bought it for approximately sworn value of $1,950,000 as of October 28th, 2021.
so 4 years ago. And you don't know,
And 2 years before the reference date, yeah.
yes, and do you know how long it's been vacant, completely vacant?
No, I cannot confirm, sorry.
Okay. No, I can't think of anything else to ask. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rack, your evidence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you look at page 1 of my brief, this picture of the building. So the building was purchased. It was a bank repossession, and the building was up for auction. And the owner, there was nobody interested in it except the present owner who purchased it. And he did purchase it to develop it into residential properties. So if you look at page 2, the company that purchased the property was going to call it Winnipeg Hyatt Place. And there was a fire in that building. So after the fire in the building gutted the building, the project was abandoned and put up for sale. It was in foreclosure due to unpaid taxes. It was listed for public auction. Nobody was interested except the present owner, and the owner purchased it for $1,950,000. To turn to page 3. So basically on September 29th of 2019, a fire broke out in that building. So these are, this is just screen captured from CTV News, and you can see the fire coming out of the roof of the building. They battled that fire for an entire day. Go down to page 4, you'll see there's another picture of the flames coming out of the roof of the building, and the fire collapsed the elevator shaft, allowing the fire to spread down to the basement. It was under renovations at the time, so the fire was contained to the 6th and 7th floor. That's where most of the burning took place. So on page 5, I guess page 4 again, this is basically an article that was in the Free Press talking about what happened to the building. And it says in the bottom, the fire engulfed the building's roof, partly collapsed its elevator shaft, and moved into the block's basement. Winnipeg fire paramedics said. So if you go to page 5, there's a whole bunch of pictures of the building. The building is the same state today as it was when it burnt. Nothing has been done to the building, and I'll have documentation to prove that later on. So page 5, you'll see that's what the building looks like inside. Go to page 6, that's another picture of the building. And it's like this today. Page 7 is another picture of the building. So there was smoke damage throughout the whole building. The roof collapsed. This picture of the main floor on page 8. You can see it's completely gutted. And page 9, typically all the floors are like that. Page 10 is the top floor. You can see there's nothing inside the building. Fires wreaked havoc inside that building and destroyed it. So page 11, again, pictures of the top floor. On page 12, you'll see there's a hole there that's the elevator shaft that collapses. And I imagine the fire probably spread down the elevator shaft, and you can see the hole in the roof. Page 13, that's the hole in the roof. And basically, the fire department basically shot water into that hole so the water went through all the floors, from the top to the bottom. That's where basically how they fought the fire. Page 14, that's another picture of the floor. You can see the walls are destroyed. And page 15, you can see how the water came through the roof from fighting the fire, all the damage. Page 16 is the top of the elevator shaft. You can see the steel from the heat basically destroyed the elevator shaft. And page 17, that's another picture of the elevator shaft. Page 18, you can see that's the roof where they boarded up the hole. The hole still exists today. And then page 18 or 19, the property was purchased in October 2021 at the starting bid of $1,950,000. So in 2023, on page 20, the property was appealed and a negotiated value was reached. So you can see the assessor, Nathan, basically came up to a value of $1,884,000. Well, since that time, there's been very little, if no, progress to the building repairs. So basically, the owner's having problems getting financing to repair the building after paying that amount of money for $1.95 million, and now it needs about over $2 million worth of repairs. So it's basically stalled. So I'm asking today to have it reduced back to the 2023 negotiated value that the assessor settled it at $1.884 million. So we got page 22. If you go down to page 23, in the meantime, the city comes down and basically inspects the building, and basically they get, if they don't have safety measures in place, railings, etc., they get fined. So this is one fine in April 29, 2022. Go down to page 24. They paid another fine in March 11th, 2024, vacant building inspection notice. If you go down to page 25, you'll see that basically the number 3.3 empty building fee. So basically, the city comes down and inspects the building continuously every year. And if you go down to page 26, you'll see on the very bottom there, it says officers' observations, no guardrails or handrails observed on first floor near front door. Roof observed in despair with multiple holes allowing elements to enter the building, multiple holes on the floor observed on top floor. So that's as of March 8th, 2024. So as of that date, even the hole in the roof hasn't been repaired. And you'll see on page 27 and 28. 28 is the boarded building order. So basically it's unoccupiable. Obviously you can't rent space in a building like that. So the building is unoccupiable. So its only value is what it was, basically what they paid for it. I mean, you can't use any comparables. So it's just some more documentation going on for the next pages about the vacant building bylaws. So the building there's been no renovations to the building since it was purchased. There is a permit for work done, but like I said, the owner is having problem getting financing due to the condition of the building and for renovations, and is kind of seeking out investors to actually turn that building into residential apartment units. But as of today, the building is just like those pictures that I've shown you. So the only value could be what they paid for it. It hasn't changed. And they were the only ones who purchased it. I'm surprised they did, but they did buy it. So I'm suggesting that it should go down to the negotiated settlement with the assessor in 2023 for the $1,884,000. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Spacek. Any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, questions?
Well, you answered some of my questions that I had prior to about the property and the condition. So if I look at some of the photos here, Lyle, they've gone in and demolished a lot of the walls and whatnot that were in the building. Is that correct, after the fire?
That's correct.
So that would pretty much be the only development work that's really taken place, is demolish what was there in the way of office separation.
That's correct, because although, the upper floors were burned out, so
Yeah.
you'd have to clean that up. And then the lower level floors, I mean, the fire kind of went down the elevator shaft and even kind of got into the basement a bit. So, I mean, between fire damage, smoke damage, and water damage, the only thing they've got to is basically demolition.
So it answers my other question that it has been vacant since 2019, September 2019 then.
Yes, with the pictures, the pictures you see are basically what it looks like today.
Yeah. Is there any parking revenue from that property, or is it all fenced off?
No, there's no parking revenue from that property.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Seelan.
You mentioned that it would cost $2 million approximately to repair this building. Do you have any?
That's the estimate.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's some of the estimates that they've had.
Do you have any written estimates of what that entails?
What they were going to do to it?
Yes.
Well, they plan to make it into an apartment block.
But the actual repairs, do we have any details on the repairs that are required based on those estimates that you say are approximately $2 million?
I don't have a list on what they're going to do. They basically, I guess, have to build out the interior. But as of today, there's even as that boarded building order states, in 2024, the hole in the roof still is there. So I imagine that would entail building out apartment suites and fixing the elevator shaft. They have to put a brand new elevator in there because that's been destroyed. But I don't have any exact details.
Okay, and it's $2 million, you said.
Yeah, the assessor has basically the permit there, so that's the initial. Now, whether or not they have to spend more than that, I have no idea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all. Any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. Thank you for the presentation. Any need for summary, Mr. Spacek? You're muted.
I have no need for summary. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, any summary?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, then we'll conclude that matter and move to the next matter on the docket. Does anyone need a break before we move on to six?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just gonna ask you for 5 minutes.
Certainly, yeah. And then let's come back at 10:55 and then we'll go on a short recess now. Thank you. Thank you. Let's call this meeting back to order, please. And if we can turn to the next matter on the docket, that's the street address 143 Smith Street. And Mr. Spacek, if you can introduce the property and lead us through the brief, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We're looking at file number 24-337. This is roll number 1209-3255000. Address, 143 Smith Street. We have a 2025 value of $2,070,000 for this 2-story OFS. It is located downtown, and 143 Smith is actually on the south side of York, so the corner of Smith and York, and yeah, it's on the east side of Smith and the south side of York. This is located between Smith and Donald Street. So let me get to the proper page here. This building was originally built in 1907. We have an effective year of 1974. We have a gross floor area of this property at 14,805 square feet with a leasable area of 11,699. If we turn to page 2, you can see that the subject property leases have been included here with the rent roll. So it looks like we have 2 leases in place. We have the Meeting Place Fellowship on the in the basement at $11 a square foot for 3,410 square feet. The second floor of 4,174 square feet has a newer lease at Community 204 Inc. At $15.81, and we have the main floor currently showing as vacant. So that brings us to the total of 11,699 square feet. Rent comparables on page 3. Downtown OFSs have been chosen. So we have a range of 8 downtown properties, 1 to 3 stories, all older built. 114 Gary is the newest in 1995, but the rest are all originally built early 1900s. We have a range of square footage to show some smaller and larger sizes. And the range of rents is from $10 to $18.24 for a mean of $14.44. This property has, on page 4, the income approach to value. Again, OFS property, so 4 stories and under. We have 3,410 square feet of basement leasable, which is currently being leased by the church, it looks like. Model generated rent of $8.12. And then we have the main floor and second floor at $14.31 for the main floor, $11.98 for the second floor, for a total blended rate of this property of $11.67. This downtown OFS has a vacancy loss of 11%, 3% expenses, and a 5.2% cap rate. So a total value of $2,070,000. We have in the addenda starting at page 8, again, included income and expense mailer. We've already went over the rent roll. Page 10, it looks like second floor lease has been, an ad has been included here by Shindeco, just showing the floor plan condition of the property on page 11. You can see what the second floor looks like. Page 12, just some information on the property. And then all the rental comparables, page 14 onward, pictures have been included like the other briefs. If you have any questions on those comparables downtown and the quality of them. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, have you any questions?
Yes, I guess on page 13, or no, we'll go back to page 10. It appears that they've tried to lease it out and they've reduced the price to try to lease it out, correct?
Yeah, correct. It looks like they cut it from, they're showing originally asking $48.50 a month, and then asking rate has gone down to $4,000 a month as of this lease ad.
Okay, those are all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, questions?
No questions at this time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Spacek, I have questions about the capitalization rate that has been assigned to this property. I'm looking at the, well, perhaps, first of all, if you can explain the difference between OFS and, which seems to be the suburban, and the OFB or OFA. Is the differentiation simply whether it's downtown or suburban? Or is it
Yeah.
size?
So our OFS title, and it has gone through changes over the years. It used to be 3 stories and under. OFS, office under 4 stories now. So the actual title doesn't differentiate between downtown or like suburban anymore. It's just all offices, 4 stories and under. You know, unless they need to be adjusted to an OFB, OFC, OFA, etc. for the other classifications. But in this case, OFS is under 4 stories. When the vacancy loss of 11%, I would have to see, again, I'm pretty sure we have some other possibly downtown OFSs today. We'll see if they're also at 11%, like if a differentiation has been made this cycle for vacancy, but I don't see a differentiation being made for cap based on location.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. I don't have anything further. Mr. Rack, your evidence, please.
Okay, take a look at page 1. Presently, there's a municipal board pending because of the increase was 26% for 2023. You can see a picture of the second of the property on the corner. And back in that day, it was Collier's. You can see a sign in the window that they were looking for leases for the second floor. It was vacant. So if you go to page 4, the second floor was vacant from February 2019 to September 2021, so it's 2.5 years. The main floor has been vacant from September 21 as of the valuation dates for 1 year, 8 months. So there has been higher vacancy in that property. For my valuation, I'm using the department's parameters for vacancy, expenses, and shortfall. And so you can see the industry cap rates for suburban office. I would consider this as a Class B office. So I'm using the potential income for the department is using is $136,580. The actual is $137 and $10. So I'm going to use the actual. For the age and condition of the building would be classified as a B. There is a vacancy problem, so 11% is sufficient. So the average cap rate of a B from low to high is 7.25%. And you'll see that actually it is as high as 8%. So I'm using the average from a low B to a high B, which is 7.25%. So using a rent of $11.71 a square foot, you get a potential income of $137.10. Applying the department's vacancy, expenses, and shortfall, and adjusting the cap rate to 7.25%, which I think is more acceptable for a building. Having a building at 5.2% is more indicative of a residential apartment than it is for a Class B OFS building. I'm looking at a value of $1,489,000. And as you'll see that you go down to the income and expense mailers, you'll see that the rents are actually like a semi-gross rent because not everything is recovered. And you'll see that for 2021, the vacancy is 35%. In 2020, it was 36%. So the vacancy at 11% departments using, I think, is reasonable. So again, I'm asking for a reduction in value to $1,489,000. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Spacek, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Just wondering if you have any thoughts on why this property is such a high vacancy rate, Mr. Rack?
I would think that they're just asking too much for what the space is and for the age of the building. There's no parking. That's all I can think of is basically that space doesn't demand that type of rent that they're asking for. And that's why it's been vacant.
But the interior is attractive, isn't it? The building seems,
Yeah, it's not
well
bad
put
shape.
together.
It's not bad shape, but again, there's no parking for this building. Could be a problem. You know, parking downtown is quite expensive. Most OFS buildings do. Once you get outside of the city, they do have, meaning even down St. Mary's or any other direction, they do have parking. So that could be a problem.
Okay. No, I have no other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan?
So it's really just the main floor that's the problem with respect to rental. I think you said it was 1.5 years that they haven't rented for.
Yeah, the second floor was vacant for 2.5 years, from 2019 to September 2021. So 2.5 years is quite a while to get it leased out. And now it's the main floor.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, I've got a question with respect to the cap rates on your page 4, the industry cap rates for suburban office. Again, you've included CBRE, Cushman, Wakefield, and Colliers. You have not included the city of Winnipeg 20th to 80th percentile portion of the chart. Would you agree with that?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I didn't include the city because they're not actual cap rates. They're computer-generated cap rates.
But you were not involved in the calculation of the cap rates as presented by CBRE, Cushman, Wakefield, or Colliers, were you?
No, but talking to representatives over the years from those companies, as they do, when they develop cap rates, they use the best buildings they have because they also sell buildings. So they're using the best buildings they have for sale prices to develop those cap rates because they want to get clients to come in and sell their properties based on the cap rates they develop. If a building doesn't meet their standards, they won't even use the sale price.
Yes, they select the buildings to produce the cap rates. They're not all of the cap rates that are available. Correct?
That's correct. They just take. That's correct. They just use the best buildings they have for sale prices.
Thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Spacek, any summary? Sorry, you're muted.
No summary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rack. Any summary?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Then we'll conclude that matter and we'll turn to the next matter on the docket, which is the street address of 100 Adelaide. Mr. Spacek, if you can introduce the property and lead us through your evidence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's do it. We are looking at file number 24-337, roll number 1209-3255000. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Let me start over. We are actually on file number 24-347, roll number 130610135000. This is 100 Adelaide Street and 332 Bannatyne. We have a 2025 assessed value of $3,561,000. This is a 5-story OFC located in the Exchange. We're looking at actual years built between 1910 and 1946, and effective year of 1980 across the whole building. This is a building with a gross floor area across all 5 floors and basement of 37,800, and we have a leasable area of 36,901. So 100 Adelaide, this is located on the west side of Main Street, and it is on the corner of Bannatyne and Adelaide. Page 2 shows the actual property leases for this property. There's no subject sales history. You can see the assessor took the reported rents and put them in a nice little chart at the bottom. And you can see that the lower floor, 100 and 200 units, so lower first floor, second floor, from 22 to 26, 16,000 square feet, leasing for $12.39 net to the Immigration Center. We have the third floor being leased from 2022 to 2027, 6,000 square feet at $12.49 a square foot. And the fifth floor is leased from 2020 to 2024, 6,300 square feet at $12.50 a square foot net. I went over the location on page 3. You can see pictures of the property at page 4. And page 5 gives you a better idea of the parking lot included with this building, or the parking included. So it's the building and parking lot. Page 6, the assessors put together some comparables. Again, these are all OFCs except for the last comparable is an OFS, but again, that OFS is a 4-story, but we have comparables in building on Bannatyne, 825 Sherbrooke, 570 Portage, and then 490 Hargrave. So these are 4 to 10-story properties, leases in place from $10 up to $19 a square foot for a mean of $1,368. And these square footages range from 1,300 square foot units all the way up to 22,000 square feet at 825 Sherbrooke. Also, comparable parking lot rent has been included. So on page 6, we have 6 Exchange parking lots. Stall counts range from 4 up to 124. And we have a range in NOIs from $21 a stall net up to $250 a stall at 212 Bannatyne. So there's a wide range of performance in parking lots as of this time period. And then page 7 is how our model generates its value. So we're using the income approach for OFC. We have 4 premises in this building. You'll see the first one is C6, storage mezzanine. So there's some storage mezz in this property, 5,700 square feet at $7.20. We have 2 units of, well, we have C7 government agency, so it just represents that it's being rented out by government agencies, and those are 12,300 square foot unit and 12,600 square foot unit. Those are at $9.47 and $9.44 a square foot. And then we have our standard C2 space of 6,300 square feet at $10.10. So this is a blended rate of $9.22, which includes that basement as we have it as storage, but again, for the whole building, $9.22 a square foot. OFCs have a 2025 vacancy rate of 13% for 2025 assessment, 3% expenses, $10 shortfall, and a capitalization rate of $8.2%. So that's how we get the total value of the building at $2,915,000. And if we turn to page 8, we have 52 stalls in the parking lot at $5,175 square stall net at 5%, gives us $646,000. If we turn to page 9, you'll see those combined come to our total value of $3,561,000. Mailers included on page 12. You can see a Schedule B site layout on page 14 of an average floor. I don't know exactly which floor, it's a little blurry, but it has been included to show a layout of one. And then rent comparables are page 15 onward. You can see pictures of all the properties that have been used. And then we included the title and application as normal. So that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reck. Questions?
Yeah, could you turn to page 10 of the cap rates?
Mm-hmm.
So basically there are no cap rates for Class C buildings, correct?
Yeah, our classification of OFC does not have its own row on the chart.
And it appears that the industry doesn't keep information on cap rates either. But would you agree, by looking at cap rates when they go from a Class A to a Class B, that basically cap rates increase as you get from an A to a B?
Sorry, sorry, I was on the wrong page here. Sorry. Cap rates go up as they go from A to B?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, for sure. On this chart, that's what's happening.
So would you agree that if you had a Class C building, probably the cap rates would increase slightly too?
I mean, again, it's Class C is a subjective property type we use for, it would all depend on the subject, when it was built, where it is compared to which Class Bs you're talking about. Most Class Bs are built 1970s in Winnipeg, like the majority of the large ones, you know, it could go up for sure. There's situations where it could go up, and then there's situations where the OFC is going to be much nicer, easy to rent, and maybe the cap rate should go down. I don't think there's a generic answer to that question. I think it's very situational.
Okay, that's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, questions?
No questions at this time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Sorry, I'm just looking at numbers again. I'll leave it, thanks, it's okay. No questions.
Thank you, and I don't have any questions. Mr. Rack, your evidence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So page 1, you'll see a picture of the building. Page 2, you'll see the inside of the building. So it's basically like a loft warehouse house style with exposed beams and exposed heating ducts. And you'll see the bottom of the picture, you'll see the interior with wood beams. So it's not a finished space where you have you know, ceiling tiles and partitions. All the partitions just sit within the space, so it's just open space design like a warehouse. And it is a Class C office space. So if you go page 3, you'll see typically from 2020 the cap rate was 9.5%. 2023 it went to 8.9%, and in 2025 it went to 8.2%, which I think is a little low. So if you go to the next page, you'll see the effective age has changed from 1972 to 1980, which I think is quite high, because there has been no interior renovations. It's just been preserved. And the building was built in 1910, as you can see from the pictures. And it is designated as a historical building, which presents challenges in renovating and also increase the cost. So a cap rate has to reflect the age of the building and the interior, the interior of the building, and exactly what the space is and the increased cost to the building. So you'll see the age, how it jumped. So if you go to page 5, there's been no real major work done to this building. It's basically as it was. It's just been kind of maintained in its original conditions, floors, ceilings, and the structural integrity of the building. So there are no statistics on Class C buildings that are not available. But Class C building would have to have a higher cap rate than a Class B building. So if we're looking at the Class B buildings, I mean, from Cushman, Wakefield, and Colliers and CBRE, the high is 8 and 8.5 and 7.5. The Class B would have a higher cap rate due to those circumstances. So the high of B is 8.5. The Class C would be slightly higher at the low end. So I'm basically applying a cap rate at 8.75% instead of 8.2, which means the increase has gone from 8.9, it's decreased from 2023 from 8.9 to 8.75 for Class C. So using the city's parameters, I'm basically getting at $9.22 a square foot, 13% vacancy, 3% expenses shortfall at 10. The cap rate at 8.75, I'm looking at $2 million. $731,842. And using the department's parking at 646, I'm getting a value of $3,338,000. So the increase in 2025 for 2025 would be from 2,976 to 3,338. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Spacek. Questions?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Whitbread, questions?
No, I have done, thank you.
Mr. Sealing? I think you're muted.
Thank you. Have you inspected this property?
Yes, I have. That's how I got the pictures.
Okay. When did you inspect them?
That would have been 2023.
And what would you say was the condition of the building at the time? How would you rate the building?
Well, I would say it's maintained in its original state. Basically, there hasn't been any major renovations. I mean, the floors have been redone, but those are the original hardwood floors in the building. And as you can see from the picture, it's all wood beams, and the ceiling is open, but it's in decent condition. Although buildings of that age do require more maintenance.
On page 3, you have cap rates of 2020 9.5%, 2023 8.9%, and 2025 of 8.2%. Where did you get these cap rates from?
Those are the cap rates the department has applied over those 3 years, over those 3 cycles.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and I don't have any questions. Mr. Spacek, summary?
No summary, thank you.
Mr. Rack, any summary required?
No, thank you.
Okay, then we'll conclude this matter and move to the next matter on the docket, that being at street address of 179 McDermott. And Mr. Spacek, if you could please introduce the property and news through your brief.
Yes, we're looking at 179 McDermott, file number 24-339, roll number 1306073610, 2025 value of 1,593,000. 179 McDermott, it is located just past the back lane east of Main Street on McDermott. So it's between Rory and Main, and it's you can see from the pictures it's a narrow building located just beside the back lane. And we have a 3-story property built in 1902 with an effective year of 1990 after some renovations. We have a gross floor area of 6,750 with a leasable area of 5,330. If we turn to page 2, it looks like some of the financials have been broken down that were reported. Again, occupied area in the property of 5,145 square feet. It looks like rental income of 185,000 plus recoveries of 55,440 gives you a gross revenue of 240,620, and then so based on that square footage, estimated gross rent per square foot of $46.77, and that's gross rent, which has been added up here. Some highlights have been shown to show the vacant units and the monthly rents. So you can see the rent roll at the bottom of page 2. Page 3, overview map. Page 4, a better picture of the property. Just scrolling down, page 5 has some pictures of the outside for you, street views. Page 6 is showing some comparables. Again, we have properties on Bannatyne, Rory, McDermott, and Market. So other properties in the exchange, older built. You can see the actual years built early 1900s with effective year built. Most of them have been, somewhat renovated since they're such old buildings, but effective years of 1975 to 1988. We have 3 to 8 story properties, and again, different sizes of area for the units ranging from 1,824 on the low end up to 10,000 square foot units. So we have a rental range of $12 all the way up to $21.50, and we have a mean of $13.77. You can see we have this property classed as a OFC on page 7, and you can see the layout of this property is interesting. It's a bunch of smaller units for rent, from my understanding. You can rent smaller offices in there, so you can see why there's 5,330 square feet. But again, they're separated by these smaller units, some as small as 125 square feet, with one larger one at 1,120 square feet. But again, when the units are so small, the rent is driven up within our model due to economies of scale. So you can see these 150 square foot units are model generated rents from a blended rate of $22.44 throughout the building. We have a vacancy loss of 13% for OFC. We have 3% expenses, 5.9% cap rate, for a total value of $1,593,000. Page 11, again, is where the addenda starts. It looks like the online income and expense mailer has been included. And then the rent roll on page 12, pictures of comparables on page 13 going forward, and the application. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Mr. Rack, questions of Mr. Spacek?
Yes. On page 2, the assessor came up with a gross rent of $46.77, but there's no calculation to determine what the net rent is, correct?
No, I don't see any expenses being taken off to determine an estimated net rent, and yeah, that's what I see.
So based on the comparables, it appears that basically the rent for space, as you're talking about, as far as the small spaces, is basically the average is basically $13.70 a square foot, correct?
Correct.
So the assessor didn't find any rents for smaller spaces.
No, this is a pretty unique property. There's not I haven't come across many properties either with such small units, like 125 square foot units in a building.
Okay, those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, questions?
Just confirming, that looks like a small park with some structure, play structure or something on the side of it, on the left side of the building. Is that correct?
Correct. I believe that is part of the daycare in the office building across the back lane. Just my guess, but I do believe that's what it's used for.
Okay. Mine's just a bit fuzzy. Thank you. No other questions.
Mr. Seelam?
No questions, Mr. Chair. My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Mr. Spacek, I would like to return to the rent and the rent comparables. The gross rents are as presented on page 2 for the estimated gross rental per square foot. The rent comps are all considerably larger, leading to the $13.77 mean address, $13.77 per square foot. Is there any kind of mathematical calculation that can be done to account for the variance in size or the reduction in size? Or is that something that is just going to have to be taken on faith? Is there a bonus of $1, $10, however many dollars per square foot, taking into account a reduced space?
You know what? Truthfully, I don't know if there's an actual equation we can use. I know the theory that we follow and our model follows is the economies of scale that, these smaller units will rent out for more. And how much more? Good question. I don't know exactly how that is determined. So that's probably as much insight as I can offer you.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Rack, your evidence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you look at page 1, the building was built in 1903. It is a heritage building, and for 2025, there's a 29% increase. I forgot to include that this building is actually at the municipal board for 2023. So the property is operated as a business center, the parking subsidized. So if you go to page 2, again, it's a cap rate problem at 5.9% is an extremely low cap rate for a building of this age and condition. So there are no E-type buildings when it comes to cap rates. I mean, the department is using 5.9%, and if you look, even a Class A building like the Richardson building is higher, 6.5% at the low end. So that 5.9% that the computer has come up with is extremely low for a Class C building. So a Class C building would have a higher class cap rate than a Class B building. And you can see, so I'm applying 8.5%, which is the high end of a Class B building due to its location. And I'm adjusting the area from 5330 to 5145, and that comes from the actual income and expense mailer. So if I apply the department's rent, vacancy, and expenses shortfall, I'm getting a value of $1,109,000. That's $215 per square foot, $215 per square foot if it was sold. So I feel that the department's rent is way too high, and as the assessor's comparables are average about $13. So the rents are way too high. So the effective age is 1975 for 2025, and 2023, the effective age is 1990. So I don't know how they come up with that effective age that it actually changes up and down. So if you go to page 4, gross floor area is 6,750 square feet. So I did 2 types of valuation. So these are sales comparables. So 208 Edmonton, the picture below, which is a nicer condition, newer than the subject building, that sold for $2,050,000. That's $142.36 a square foot. The title was sold on July 5th, 2022. It's a superior building, and I believe where it's located in Edmonton would be a slightly better location. The next sale is 325 Gary. 1980 was built in 1988, sold for $750,000. That's 5,925 square feet. So both those buildings are superior to the subject property, and that sold at $126 a square foot, August 9th, 2022. So quite close to the valuation date. The sales are downtown. Comparison 1 is superior to the subject, and comparison 2 is newer and superior to the subject. So I've used basically 325 Gary at $126 a square foot. It's a newer building and nicer. And basically at 6,750 square feet at $126,000 is $850,500 based on sales. So then we have the rental comparables, and you can see the pictures of them. They're all superior buildings. And basically, if you go to page 8, there's a list, and these are all asking rents from the Johnson report. So they're ranging from a low of $795 in Portage up to $1,250, and the most expensive is $14 a square foot. I've chosen comparable 4, 5, and 6, which are closest to the subject and location, and that average is $13.63. So if I apply that amount to the subject property and use vacancy at 13%, expenses at 3%, and shortfall at 10%, and 8.5% cap rate, I get $617,000. And I use these both comparables because the net operating of the subject property is only around $30,000. So the best way I thought is to do a comparison by sales, to do a comparison by rents, and my rents are similar to what was presented by the assessor. So I'm getting a final value of the sales at 851, rent comparables at 618, and I feel that basically the sale is more indicative of what the property might bring, maybe a little on the high side, but for this purposes, I'm using 851,000. And that turns out to be about $18.51 a square foot, which accounts for the smaller spaces, and the rent would be higher in a smaller space. And then I've included basically the income expense measures that the assessor has presented. So I think the 1851 a square foot is more indicative of the smaller spaces than $24 a square foot. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Spacek, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread,
No, I have none either, thanks.
Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I have some questions with respect to the rent that you have purported to assign Mr. Rack. The rent comparables that you have used are all for significantly larger spaces for the rent that's available. Would you agree with that?
I would,
Okay.
but those spaces, like, let me just, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
but those spaces are the total available vacant space. In other words, 167 Lombard and 177 Lombard, I know those buildings quite well. I've been in them many times when I worked at the assessment department. So there are no spaces of that size. Size of those spaces are a lot smaller, maybe, you know, as small as maybe 500 to 2,000 square feet. That, by the Johnson report, is just the total that's available in that building at the time. So they're not looking to rent 46,280 square feet. If you go on their website, you'll see they have all sorts of sizes of space for rent.
Okay. Would you agree generally that the smaller the space, the more rent per square foot is commanded?
Yes, I believe that. That's why I think the sale price at $851 by sales comparisons brings it up to $18.51 instead of like $13. So that's quite a bit of a lot more per square foot than the comparables assessor has. So I think 1851 is more indicative of a small space.
The actual rental income that you have at page 10 of your report seems to mirror that of the assessor who prepared the brief leading to the $44 gross rental, because the rental income and the administrative recoveries show a total income of $238,000. The rental income alone is $185,179 for that 12-month period ending December 31st, 2022. Right?
That's correct, but that's the gross rent. These leases are all gross, so you'd have to take the annual expenses and subtract the annual expenses, which are $213,464. So the net operating income is $25,456, which I don't think represents a building. That's why I'm going with the sale price.
Yeah,
When you have a gross rent, you have.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the annual expenses and whether the legitimacy of it or anything else, but what is the average size of the offices for rent in this building or in this premises? Do you know?
Well, I don't know what the average is, but if you go to the last page, the rent roll, you'll see how small they are. They're like 125, 130, 150 square feet, 340. The biggest one I think was 825. So they're all smaller spaces.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have anything else. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rack, any summary?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. All the leases in here are gross leases. So you have to take the total income, which is gross at $238,920, And in order to come down to a net operating income, you have to subtract all the expenses that the owner is subject to. So for this property, the net operating income is only $25,465, and I thought that was extremely low, $25,000. So I went to comparables as far as rent, but I think the best indication to accommodate the small spaces is to go to the sale price, and that gives a net rent of $18.51 square feet, which is a lot more than basically larger spaces, and I think that basically represents the smaller spaces. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Then we will conclude this matter and turn to the last matter on the list, which is 217 McDermott Avenue street address.
All right, we are looking at 217 McDermott Avenue. This is file number 24-330. We have roll number 13060862000. We have a 2025 value of $678,000. This is a larger OFD property. Again, 217 McDermott. That's located at the corner of Albert and McDermott, just west of Main Street. There are pictures down below, but this building was originally built in 1883, and we have an effective year of 1950. So it's still, again, an older building. We have a gross floor area in this property of 36,582, and we have a leasable area of 21,226. Again, when I see a total value of $678,000 on this property, for the size, it seems low. But when we look at page 2, page 3, see condition of the property. Page 4 is the top view. Page 5, the assessors included the zoning, so just a character sector zoning that's common in the exchange and some parts of downtown. The OFDs for comparables that have been included are 140 Bannatyne, 65 Rory, 214 McDermott, 115 Bannatyne, and 136 Market. Again, these are actual year builds early 1900s, and then effective year builds are all newer than 1950. So you can compare that these comparables are in better condition. We have 3 to 8 stories. Leasable square footages of 1,800 up to 10,000, and a rental range of $12 to $21.50 for a total average of $13.83. You'll see the model value of our property on page 6. A wide range of units in this older building. You can see some smaller units, and then some 1,000 square foot units add up to 21,226 square feet in this building. We have a total blended rate of $5.60 a square foot in this property, representing the condition of it and the age, for a total potential gross income of $118,894. Again, for the ROFDs this cycle, if you take the 20% vacancy, I think this one's been a little higher. I don't know if 20% is our actual model driven. It might be adjusted for this property just because of its issues and age and everything. So it's at 20%. We have 3% expenses, $8 shortfall, and an overall capitalization rate of 8.6%. Again, when you cap that, it works out to $678,000 for this property. If we turn, it looks like in this case, the assessor is also included on page 11 the cost approach, similar to that other property we looked at on Portage East before. But we have a total cost value of this property of $1,527,000. We have a land value for 6,000 square feet at $99 a square foot. Page 13 is including land sales downtown as well. They range from $83 up to $136 with a mean of $106. It looks like those are all parking lots for the land sale. And I'm just scrolling through all the rental comparables. Can be pictures of them can be seen page 15 going forward. And the thing is, I don't see a sale and I don't see a mailer, so that is somewhat surprising to me. But again, I will see if I'm missing anything on the applicant's presentation. That is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rack. Questions?
Just curious, have you ever been inside that building?
Not on the upper floors. I just enjoy the shawarma.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, questions?
No, I have none, thank you.
Mr. Seaton?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions. Mr. Rack, can you please give us your evidence?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you look at page 1, a picture of the building, you'll see all the windows are open. There is no air conditioning in this building, and this building, the only renovations done to this building are the 3 units on the main floor. The upper floors of the building are basically in original condition. And we're talking about 1911. And the upper floors, if you go to page 2, the upper floors are actually, there's only 2 washrooms, one on the 2nd floor and one on the 4th floor. There are no other washrooms on any of the other floors. So you'll see on page 2, that's a picture of the lobby when you walk in. That elevator hasn't worked in decades. It's just used to storage inside there. You can see they store the garbage bins inside that elevator. So it's a total 5-story walk-up. On the bottom of page 2, you'll see that basically these spaces are basically used by artists. There's not really any businesses in there. That some artists put all those old copper ceiling tiles on the wall and painted them. If you go down to page 3, you'll see those are the typical hallways which are in original condition. You can see that upgraded electrical conduit is running on the outside of the walls by the left door. On the bottom of page 3, that's actually one of the nicer spaces on the front of the building, art space. And again, on page 4, that's the front of the building, which are nicer spaces. They have newer windows, but you can see the conditions of the windows that all the paint is coming off them. And if you keep going down, you'll see another picture of some art space. And I've discussed the elevator and the spaces. So for 2023, the increase was 53% on this building in 2023. So there's a municipal board pending. If we go to page 6, basically, I think that basically the rents, the main floor is what drives that building. We get good rents on the main floor. The upper floors rents are quite low. The big problem with this building on the upper floors, because of the condition with only 2 washrooms and that there's no air conditioning, is the vacancy. So you'll see there's history of vacancy from 2012 to 2022. And it's run at 48% down to the best years, 2022 at 28%. In 2023, it actually went back up. So it's a higher percentage. I think it's about 38% again. So you're getting a very high average of vacancy at 42%. So I'm going to apply the department's rents, the expenses, and the shortfall. I'm going to adjust the vacancy from 20 to 25%. And 25% is basically the highest percent that the department will go to when there's a chronic vacancy problem. And there is a chronic vacancy problem. You're looking from 2012 to 2022. There is a lot of vacancy in that building. The department is at 560 square foot, and that's basically driven by the main floor space. So applying the department's parameters for rent, expenses, and shortfall in the cap rate, I'm adjusting the vacancy to 25%. And so I'm looking at a value of $494,000. And just below, you can see the income expense mailer that was sent in for 2022, which ended in, I believe, March or April 2022. So you can see that there's considerable vacancy, 28%, but historically, it's been in the 40s. I mean, you're looking at 1, 2, 3. there's been 8 years out of all that the vacancy has been above 40%. I think applying a vacancy of 25% is acceptable, and I'm looking just to change the vacancy at 25%. So I'm looking at $494,000. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Spacek, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you so much.
Mr. Seelan?
Have you inspected this building recently?
Yes, I was in it last summer.
Same condition as you've described here?
Yes, nothing's been done to the upper floors because there is no elevator, and there's only 2 washrooms in the whole building on different floors. And the washrooms aren't, they're all in original condition too. So the main value of that building is on the 3 units on the main floor. The upper floors, like I said, there's no air conditioning, and they're all in original condition. It's basically rented out to artists or for people into crafts and things like that.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, questions?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
I just have some questions, Mr. Rack, with respect to the income and expense mailer that was included in your materials. And perhaps you can help me interpret it, but I see a total rent income for 2022 of $159,494. That's at page 9 of your brief. You see?
Yeah,
that?
that's if you look at the top of that sheet where it says 2022, it says on the second line that says all leases are gross. And then if you go down to page 9, you'll see that that's $159,494 is the gross rent, and you can see that income type is gross. It's checked off with an X. I mean, they're small spaces, so there's no way to actually bill anybody for any space. So you can see the expenses. So you're getting a net operating income of $75,371 for the property, and I'm applying $114,805, which is the same rent that the assessor's applying, as if the property was 100% occupied.
Right, but they have the average of space vacant at 28%. That's already been taken into account in the rental income that they've received on this mailer, is it not?
That's correct. So the net operating, so basically $159,494 is the gross rent, is checked off gross. You take the expenses off, you're left with $75,371. But for my calculation, I'm using the cities. So the potential rent is $114,805. So that's what, $35,000 more rent that's being applied to that space. So my calculation is as if the building was totally occupied, and that's what the department is using, $114,805. I'm using their exact number as if it was totally occupied.
Thank you. I don't have anything further.
And basically, sorry, Mr. Chairman, let me just interject. As you'll see on page 6, the rent at 114 is a little less because I adjusted the area from 21,226 the department has down to 20,501, which is from the income expense mailer. So it's slightly smaller.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
I have no need for summary. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Mr. Rack, any summary?
I have no summary, and thank you very much.
Okay, having heard all the matters, we will adjourn. Thank you very much for your time and your presentations, gentlemen. And Mr. Rack, you will be receiving the notifications by registered mail. So we will start deliberating shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
You too.
Okay. I'll go turn off the stream.